Okay, so here I'm just having a simple 6 max game with a few people that seem to be all inning a lot. Now you'll probably remember Mesha from a previous video, so I already know she's quite a loose opponent. Now these other people I don't really know, but I've only been here a few hands and I've already seen everyone but this hussy person all in. So I'm just going to sit here and play very tight until I get a hand. Since it looks like this Nanuka person is all inning, whatever. I don't need an overly large, brilliant hand, but I just want a hand that I feel I can beat anything that they can be all inning on. So something like ace king, ace queen, something along those lines. That's the sort of hand I'd all in, since that beats most average hands. So there's no need to all in on 2 ace, because that it's probably the best hand, but it doesn't give me the edge that I want. So I'm just going to keep folding until I get a hand. So I'm just going to hit the pause button until I get a hand, and then I'll turn it back on. Okay, so I've just woken up with pocket queens here, but nobody's raised. But because there has been a hell of a lot of raising action, I don't want to be called by any garbage hands, so I'm just going to do a huge overbet into this pot and just raise it to 20k. And yeah, as you see, people are still going to call me. See, I've got several callers already, so as long as an ace or king doesn't flop, there you go, that's a really perfect flop for us. And because these are really loose players, I'm just going to bet pot and try and move all in. If they got any piece of that flop, he'll probably all in, and there you go. Just gotta hope he didn't hit a 2 pair or something. Yeah, there you go, he just hit a top pair and meant all in. Because we know he's a very loose player and he all ins on anything, I can just happily call down pocket queens. But if that was a tighter player, you really don't want to all in on just an overpair. Usually you'd want to be a bit cautious. And the reason I waited for pocket queens, although it was only about 10 hands until I got that, is not so much because I don't think I can beat Nanuka. I had a lot of hands that I was pretty certain were ahead of her hand range, but when you're against a full ring of people, it's not just her all in I have to take into consideration. If she all in, just because she is all inning on a bad hand doesn't mean that someone else isn't going to call behind me with a genuine quality hand. So if I decided to say call on ace 9 suited or something like that, she probably could have had a garbage hand that, I don't know, king 2 or something like that. But then behind me, someone like Misha or this Trezex person could have quite easily had ace king, ace queen, and I'd have been completely dominated and be putting my money in when I just didn't want to. So you don't have to just think about the person that's doing the all-in, but you want to think about the people that are behind you as well. Now here I've got pocket eights, but people are going to be pushing in on the flop far too much. So the only thing I'm going to be comfortable with on the flop with these eights is if I hit an 8. And that only happens about 1 in 10 times. And this time I just happened to get lucky, I would have hit the 8. But you can't look at a play and base it by the result. That was a very good play for the reason that if I did not flop that 8, I would have just been in no man's land and I wouldn't have been able to call an all in. So unless I feel that the pot I could win was 10 times bigger than the bet that I was putting into the pot, the correct decision is to fold. Which is the reason why I folded that hand, and I'm not sitting here regretting it just because I hit an 8. I know it's the right decision over the long run, and that's what matters. Really, there was no way I could have seen the flop. Given the loose nature of these players, pressing all in pre-flop wouldn't have been a bad idea. So I was probably far ahead of their hand range, but you can't just call the flop on a pocket pair like that and just hope you hit, because most of the time it just won't happen. And these people are just all inning, so I'm just going to sit here and carry on playing tight and wait for my hands. I mean, I've only been here about 10 minutes and I've already doubled up to 400k, so you've got to be patient, but it's paying off really fast. 6-7 suited, if no one raises I just call the blinds here. It's got quite a lot of potential to it, but if I miss the flop I'm just going to fold. Yeah. If they were tight players I might take a stab at this pot, but they're really maniacs, so you just want to take all forms of bluffing out of your strategy. Do not bluff. If there's any maniac player in the hand, just don't bluff. Just try and keep your risk low. The key here is you want to lose the minimum on your bad hands. That is a big mistake that a lot of people make, is they put too much money in on mediocre or bad hands, and before they know it, they've just put 100k into the pot and lost it. This is especially the case when people try to bluff. You'll probably see me do some of this myself in some of the other videos. I know I've done one in the video of Kerner when I put that up. Is I try to bluff, say, half the pot to try and win I think it was an 8k pot or something like that, and on the turn I tried to bluff again, and Kerner just decided I didn't have a hand and decided to call, and before I knew it I'd lost about 40k trying to pick up about a 6 or 8k pot. So the key is on your bad hands to just lose the minimum. If you watch the match of my game with Kerner, you'll pick that up, that when he hit his good hands, quite often I had a slight setup and I ended up paying him off. But the important difference is when I picked up my hands, there were only 1 or 2 occasions where he actually paid me off, which is the reason why he ended up winning a lot more money in that match than I did. So the key is to just get away from your bad hands and get away from them cheap. Don't decide, oh, I'm just going to see a turn card or something like that, because most of the time the turn card is just as expensive as a flop. So why would you pay the same for 1 card as you would for 3 cards? And here I've got King 10, it's not a very good hand considering how loose they're playing. If you've got a table of loose players, you just want to play really, really tight. Now I would have flopped top pair, but you just can't commit that much of your stack unless you're sure. I mean, yeah, look, if I'd have called that flop, I'd have hit a top pair and might have gone all in. And you can say, oh my god, you set me up or something like that, but the key to avoiding those setups is to get away from it pre-flop. There's no good saying, oh, I might be beat on the flop. A hand like that, it's always pre-flop that you have to get away from it, and that's what I did with that King 10 hand. If I had made a loose call, I might have lost all my chips there. To be quite honest, I probably would, because I didn't think that Trez would have a hand that strong. One good bit of advice I can give about these bad players is you should always respect them. If you go into this sort of match with the attitude of, oh my god, I hit a top pair, you've probably got crap, you an idiot for calling, and all that kind of attitude, you won't do very well. You don't want to disrespect these people. You want to treat them with the utmost respect and just analyse the hand appropriately. So rather than saying to yourself, oh my god, this guy is an idiot, You just want to analyse the hand based on hand ranges. So you just want to sit down and think, am I ahead of his very large hand range based on his actions? And you just alter your decision process accordingly. You don't sit there and say, oh my god, this guy's a retard. Like with this Murloc person who's just all-inning. You don't think, oh, he's just all-inning on nothing, I'm just going to call, because that's just going to lose you money in the long run. You don't want to all in just because you think you have an edge, unless you're really concerned about the long run. You want a much bigger edge against a person like Murloc that's all-inning on that sized stack. I mean, there's quite a lot of hands that I've been fairly certain I've had an edge against, but you can see here, Stevie A, he's widely all-inning on the best hand, but he's only got a slight advantage, maybe 60-40, 65-35. If I'm going to all in, I want to know I've got something like a 2-to-1 advantage at least if I'm going to all in for this sort of money. See, like Ninaka has here, she's got about 70-30 odds on this all in, she's just got him dominated. That's the sort of position you want to put yourself in against these maniac players. Don't get impatient, just keep folding until you get your good hands. Since the price of the blinds compared to these pots you can win, the blinds just become irrelevant. Turn 5, I'll just keep folding. See, he's just raising up everything, so as soon as I get any sort of hand, I'm probably going to be a 2-to-3 favourite, 2-to-1 favourite to just double up. So as you see here, you've got Stevie A all-inning, and rightly so, he's got the best hand, but he only had the best hand by a 2-to-3 advantage. So if you want to play that way, you really have to have the bankroll to back it up. If you don't have much money and you want to be more guaranteed, you just want to sit back and wait for your hands a bit more, which is pretty much the approach that I'm taking. I want to make sure I know that I have the best hand. It's a really conservative play, but I would rather ensure that I have a better chance of winning than just aiming for my overall game. But like I said, it depends what your aim is. If you want to win overall, then just hit the all-in button whenever you think you're ahead. But if you want more guaranteed income, then you would do what I'm doing here, which is just playing tight. Yeah, and never do what Ninuka just did there. If you know the person's going to press all in, just don't put any money in unless you're willing to back it up with your entire stack. There's just no point. If you think Murloc's going to push all in on a garbage hand, then you really want a good hand before you put any sort of money into this pot. And here he's just all-inning on a flush draw on the flop here. It's just like, unless you have a strong hand, there's nothing you can do about it. So rather than just wasting money, you just get away cheap. I mean, here I've probably lost about 10k in blinds, but I'm going to win about 200k as soon as I make a call with, well, I'll have about 2-to-1 odds to win 200k once I make a call. And here again, Ninuka's just column dominated, and every hand that's dominated is generally going away from Murloc. And I just keep folding. I want a good hand. They're just raising every pot here. See, he just says in the chat he has 6s that hand. So just because he is a maniac doesn't mean he can't have good hands. So like here, King Jack, I could call, but unless I flop a king or a jack, I don't really want to. So again, I'm just going to opt to wait for a better hand just because he's a loose person doesn't mean he can't still have a hand like that dominated. See, on this occasion I just would have flopped 2 pair, but like I said, just because he's a maniac doesn't mean he doesn't have the better hand. And ace-8 is a much better hand than king-jack is. So I didn't want to put my money in, because, like I said, he had the best hand. So unless you are fairly sure you have the best hand pre-flop, just don't put your money in. Of course, this only applies to these really maniac-style players. If you're just against a loose player, you can't keep folding hands like this. You're just going to get run over and have your blinds eaten away. The reason it works for these people is I know I can win a huge pot as soon as I do call, so I have the ability to be more patient. About ace-8, I'm just going to call this one because I have an ace. Yeah, I have the best hand, but like I said, am I really willing to risk it on a hand like ace-8 just based on that I probably have the best hand? If you're willing to risk your whole bankroll on it, you can go ahead and call. I would have been ahead if I pushed all in the huge majority of the time. But I'm just trying to emphasise here that I want a good spot to put my money in, because I know he's going to pay me off as soon as I do. And I'm just minimising my losses. So I'm just going to sit back and just be patient. And again, I've got 9 ace. Yeah, he's pressing in all in, and 9 ace is a bit better, so I'm just going to push all in. He can't be doing this on any quality hands. If I lose, then yeah. There you go, look, I've got a dominated hand, and I think we just split this pot. No, I took this pot. No, yeah, we split the pot. But I did get my money in on a dominated hand, because I was fairly sure I had him dominated, or at the very least I had 2 to 3 odds. So I felt that was the right move. So again, I'm just going to go back to folding until I think I've got the best hand again. Again, that was a case of I have got millions of PO that I can afford to lose, so I have absolutely no issue with losing a 700k pot as long as I know it was the right decision in the long run. If you don't have that sort of bankroll, just keep folding until you get the very best hands. It's like here, I've got to either all in for 400k or fold. So I want a high quality hand to do that with. So I think that's pretty much it for a maniac table again in a 6-max. Just sit down, be patient, don't all in just because you're getting bored. Just think of how big the pot is compared to your blinds. I mean, I'm losing 2k, 4k in blinds compared to winning a 600k pot. The blinds are just irrelevant. So that's it for this video.